Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, comedian and actress Mollie Heckerling talks about her babysitter getting in fights with a family friend, Gilbert Gottfried.
We're talking about Gilbert Gottfried because, you can't cancel Gilbert because the beauty of Gilbert is that it's not even about the thing that he's making fun of. It's that you don't want him to make fun of it, so he has to. Like the way that he got fired from Aflac for making all those jokes after the tsunami in Japan. You know what I mean? Like, it's a compulsive thing that he has to do. It's his superpower that he just has to do this.
Today on the show, writer Mollie Heckerling talks about her babysitter and Gilbert Gottfried and many more stories about growing up with her mother, Amy Heckerling. Stay close.
Hey, my name is Mollie Heckerling, and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show of officially over 13 years, that's right, July 10th was my 13-year anniversary. And whether you've been listening all that time or you're a brand new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. Now, I do hope you guys enjoyed the story last week by comedian Jeffrey Osmus. Jeffrey talks about getting mugged in Chicago, and it's a really funny story. So go back, you guys. Listen to Jeffrey Osmus talking about getting mugged in Chicago last week. It's actually very funny, but not today. Stick with me now, because today I'm bringing back a story from just 2 or 3 years ago with writer Mollie Heckerling. This story always stood out to me as one of the funniest situations. Basically, Mollie had a wonderful babysitter who was getting absolutely reamed by Gilbert Gottfried, who was a family friend of Mollie's. And Gilbert just didn't let up. If you remember Gilbert Gottfried, one of the funniest people to have ever lived. And Mollie has such a great story today about Gilbert. And I also wanted to remind you guys that I am still recording my Life in 3 Songs. Check it out exclusively on Spotify. I talk to comedians about the 3 songs from their life that have impacted them. You can check out the website, mylifein3songs.com, and also follow the show on Insta and Twitter at mylifein3songs. Am I going to Threads? I'm not sure yet. Probably. However, they have that algorithm thing that goes on, like on Facebook and Insta, so you're never going to see everything like you did on Twitter. You're only going to see, a few people. Anyway, I'm not sure. I'll let you guys know, but you can keep an eye out for me over there on Threads. And also, if you'd like to join my mailing list, I've only been sending about 1 note a month or every 3 weeks, but you can do that by going to storyworthypodcast.com, and a little thing will flash up, and that way you can fill it out and join my mailing list. All right, you guys, one more thing before we get over to Mollie's story. I wanted to remind you that we are playing Story Smash, the storytelling game show, this Saturday night at the Lyric Hyperion in Silver Lake, California. If you live in LA, you got to check out Story Smash this Saturday night with Melissa Peterman, Peter Melman, and Danny Zucker. It is the funniest show you'll ever see in Los Angeles. You can go over to storysmashshow.com and check out the website. All right, you guys, she's here right now. Like I said, Mollie Heckerling. What a wonderful talent. She has this really funny YouTube video called Ratso. You can check out Ratso over there on YouTube. And Mollie's mother was Amy Heckerling, or is Amy Heckerling, I should say, which is very interesting. She's the woman who directed and wrote the movie Clueless, which was a huge hit in the 90s. Anyway, Mollie's a wonderful girl. I know you're going to love her story. So wherever you are, you guys, put your hands together for the very talented Mollie Heckerling.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is my story time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So my story is about my babysitter growing up. Her name was Barbara. She was crazy and she looked exactly like Howard Stern. she was the kind of woman who would go into a restaurant and pick a fight with anybody, and, just would say anything because she had to say what she thought. She couldn't just not say anything, even if it was blunt and hurt your feelings. So she was a fun person to grow up with, very immature, very funny. But she had this tragic background because her parents were Holocaust survivors. And she would tell people when she met them a lot that her parents were Holocaust survivors because it was a big part of who she was. But I also think on some level she was accustomed to the sympathy a little bit where, everyone would, feel so bad for her. And, it was like an immediate sort of bonding thing that, she had to sort of relate to people and feel like, she had their sympathy. But my mom was friends with Gilbert Gottfried. And she made the mistake of trying to turn to him for sympathy. And it was the worst call she ever made. What happened was Gilbert was in town and he wanted to hang out with my mom. And Gilbert, I love him to death. But he is the cheapest human being on the face of the earth. He is so cheap that when he got appendicitis, he waited for his appendix to burst because he was too cheap to call an ambulance. So he calls my mom up one night and he says, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm making dinner." He goes, "Oh yeah, what are we having?" She goes, "Do you want to come over?" So he wants to come over, but he doesn't want to pay for a cab. So she sends my babysitter to go to his hotel and pick him up. So I guess this is when it all started. I wasn't in the car with them, but I guess what happened was they're in the car. She starts making conversation. She tells him.
How old is the babysitter, by the way?
She was 45.
And her parents were still alive then? Or
her mother
passed?
Was still alive. Her parents survived the Holocaust.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, her parents survived the Holocaust. Her mother was still alive, but her father died in a car accident with her little sister years later. So, I mean, just sort of like a, not a horrible, happy family background. Yeah. So she's telling Gilbert her background and the Holocaust story. And I guess he starts up in the car, like making jokes and, being an idiot. So that by the time they get back to the house, she's already upset. And he just kept going all night long. Just like, he ate whatever my mom gave him. He licked the plate. He said, "I guess your parents didn't eat this good in Treblinka." Like, "Oh, I've been meaning to lose some weight. Can you tell me how your parents did it?" Like, all just sort of like, we're talking about Gilbert Gottfried because like, you can't cancel Gilbert because the beauty of Gilbert is that it's not even about the thing that he's making fun of. It's that you don't want him to make fun of it. So he has to. Like the way that he got fired from Aflac for making all those jokes after the tsunami in Japan. You know what I mean? Like it's a compulsive thing that he has to do. It's his superpower that he just like has to do this. So Barbara was, really upset. And she
wait, did you guys sit down to have dinner? Did everybody sit down?
We're like sitting at the kitchen counter. I mean, we've never been like a formal sit down dinner type of family. We're slobs, like my, like you can take the Bronx you can take the girl out of the Bronx, but you can't take the Bronx out of the girl. That's my mom. So, we're just all sitting around the kitchen. He's eating, we're watching him like making these awful jokes. Barbara threatened to quit. My mom gave her more money and she, didn't quit and we all apologized. She was upset that, my mom was like laughing at the jokes, but it's like, she had to explain. It's like, it's because it's Gilbert. It's not because, it's because he's insane. I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't think that that's a valid excuse and would still think it's reprehensible, but they're probably also not comedians. So
exactly.
So what happened was Barbara was a really huge fan of Howard Stern. Like she looked just like him and she loved him and she listened to him every morning and she knew that Howard Stern was friends with Gilbert. So she calls into the show one morning telling them this story. and they put her on the air. And then they got Gilbert. They woke him up or whatever time it is that they record the show, like 6 a.m. They call him early in the morning, wake him up. They're like, we have this woman on the phone saying that you made fun of the Holocaust, and, she's all pissed off. And, she works for Amy Heckerling, and they proceeded to argue on the air. And it was so funny because the whole time they were just ripping on each other, and Barbara loved a good fight. Like, this was the thing about her. Like, you couldn't take her to a sizzler without like her getting into a screaming match with somebody for God knows what, using a toothpick, anything that just like rubbed her the wrong way. So this was like sparring for her. Like, I think she really enjoyed being on Howard Stern with Gilbert, like telling him he had a small dick, and Howard saying, if you had to sleep with a Gilbert or a Nazi, and she says a Nazi, and Gilbert's like, oh yeah, because they could give you more bread. Like, it was just, and they did this. I guess it was like such a ratings darling that they had them on for like 3 separate episodes of just them fighting about, him being a schlub, and how she thinks Ron Zimmerman is sexier than he is, and like all just random shit. And all these episodes are on YouTube now, and they're labeled, oh my gosh, they're labeled Gilbert versus the German woman, or Gilbert versus the Heckerlings. And he even started making jokes about me on the air because I was like 9 years old at the time. And he's like, oh yeah, Mollie, she's hot. Do you get to give her sponge baths? Like, what's that like? So he calls the house one day. And I was like, what'd you say? Oh, wait, no, I should go back. So Barbara and I also used to crank call him a lot after this whole incident. We'd leave him nasty messages telling him that he'd like wipe his ass with toilet paper and then save it because he was too cheap to buy a new roll. Or just like, that was like my stupid 10-year-old insult. Like, we just left him all these nasty messages. And when he called the house one day, I was like, what'd you say about me on the Stern show? And he goes, I said you had a big hairy cunt. And then he hung up on me. So yeah, all those episodes of them fighting are just on YouTube, where it's like, she's telling him he's not funny, and, it's just him like being a creep and making jokes about the Holocaust, and, Howard and Robin just laughing the whole time. So that was my Gilbert Gottfried story, and also just my sort of way of keeping Barbara's memory alive, because she tragically killed herself when I was about 16 years old. She OD'd on Ativan, which is not uncommon. I mean, it's an epidemic. Lots of people overdose on opioids. And I remember, I think my mom saw Gilbert, and he asked how she was, and she told him that she killed herself. And Gilbert, someone who always has a joke to say at the most inappropriate time, like, he didn't say anything. He was just like, oh, fuck. So I think that, in his own way.
It wasn't an accident?
No, it wasn't an accident. I don't think so. She was, she was at a weird crossroads.
Is that a wild story or what? I told you guys, I knew you'd like it. Mollie Heckerling, what a great person. She's a really talented writer. You can find her over there on social media at Mollie Schmolly. That's what she goes by. And of course, you can follow me also anywhere over at Storyworthy or Story Smash. And I also have my Life in 3 Songs on Instagram and Twitter. Perhaps soon to Threads. We will see. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate each and every listener. Today's story was a repeat from a few years ago. I'm doing that now and then when I don't have a guest prepared, and I hope you guys enjoy it. There's over 800 stories in the back catalog, so there's plenty to go through. So take a look at the back catalog, choose a guest or a topic you're interested in. And again, I really appreciate each and every listener to Storyworthy. All right, you guys, here's to another 13 years. Well, we'll see about that. I need to get paid. We'll see. I do enjoy recording Storyworthy, and I do enjoy talking to people. I'm a naturally curious person, so it really works well for me. Anyway, you guys, I definitely appreciate each and every one of you. Again, thanks for listening to Storyworthy. On behalf of the very talented Mollie Heckerling, my name is Christine Blackburn, saying, make it a Storyworthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.